Welcome to the E-Show with Neil Ravin. Founded in 2013, the EHL has become the college placement leader on the East Coast. Sit back and learn more about the next step in your junior hockey career.
Welcome to the E-Show, presented by the Penalty Box Foundation. The Foundation's mission centers around their daily motto, we take care of our own, as they help out all of those within the hockey community who've experienced a catastrophic event. Learn more at penaltyboxfoundation.org. What's up? My name is Neil Ravin, and this is episode number 123 of the E-Show. On this week's episode, we officially welcome in the trio of new EHLP teams to the podcast. This fall marks the start of the 8th season in EHLP history, and with the additions of the Adirondack Jr Thunder, the Union Junior Thunder, and the Pennsylvania Huntsmen, the EHLP will have never been bigger with 15 teams set to hit the ice. The podcast begins with an interview featuring Glenn Merkosky, who was at the helm up in Adirondack, playing in the same building as their ECHL pro team. Moving along to our second Thunder team, Sam Tafel joins the podcast to talk about how years of building a youth program has led to this new junior team. Finally, to wrap things up, Zach Overholtzer is the GM for the Huntsmen, and he too felt like the next best step for his organization was to add a junior team at the top. I'm joined now by Glenn Merkosky, the head coach and GM of the new Adirondack Jr Thunder. How's it going, Glenn?
It's going great here. We're slowly getting our hockey program off the ground and rolling, and keeping us busy for sure.
Yeah, well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast, an episode where we're focused on all three new EHLP teams. Technically, you guys were the first ones of the three. You can kind of put that feather in your cap. But can you go back to when the team became official and when they reached out to you to become the first head coach? What was that conversation like, and was it an easy decision for you?
Well, what actually happened is I'm on the board with the professional team, the East Coast Hockey League team, and they asked me if I would join the board for the junior team, and we sat down and we had our first meetings with the with ownership and with Todd and Tad Sipowicz and we talked about coaches, and after the meeting I got on the phone with one of the high school coaches who Dean Williams, who was also involved in the selection process. And I said, Dean, this would be a perfect job for you. You're coaching high school, but it's a higher level and it'd be a great job for you. And he said, it's something that he would like to do and would be in his plans in the future, but being a high school teacher and involved with the travel and some of the midweek stuff, just wouldn't be able to do it. And I'm retired and now I'm coaching. And it was interesting because with my kids playing, I've looked at some of the junior B programs and things like that, and I go, it'd be kind of cool to coach a team in your hometown and coach some of the kids, and so yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
So you can kind of say that this wasn't planned, but you're excited.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't planned, but I am excited for it. Like I said, I coached here years and years ago in the American Hockey League, and I never left. And obviously, raising a family, raising kids, I was involved a little bit in youth hockey. As my kids got older, I stepped out and stepped away and let somebody else coach them. But my youngest son is going to play for us this year as an age out, and looking forward to that challenge. And we have a couple of kids here with different stories. We've had a couple of boys who, one of them in particular, that hasn't played hockey in a couple of years, and all of a sudden with this team coming back to town, he's excited to play again, and he's going to be back playing. So there's going to be some unique challenges, not only for them as hockey players, but for them as young men starting to grow up and make the next step into their life.
And I want to get to those stories in a second here, but you mentioned how you previously coached in Adirondack. You played as well. Won a couple of Calder Cups. What was it about the community there that kind of kept you in that area?
It's a great place to live, and we probably and I tell this when I'm talking to some of the kids that are coming up here. We probably have between half a dozen, 10 retired professional players who set up shop and live here, and we laugh about it. You're driving up the Northway from Albany, and usually we came in, after training camp, so it's dark, and you're driving up the Northway, and you're going, where the heck am I going? And years later, we're all living here, and it was just a great place to live. It's a great place to bring up a family. A lot of us at that time, when we were players, we were in our 20s, and we were starting families, and it was just a great place to live. And it's a funny story, and now I've lived most of my life here.
Being that you won a pair of Calder Cups there, with this now that I've learned about Core, are you guys kind of celebrities in the town or not really?
Well, one of you quite often hear the line, "You were my grandma's favorite player." So, I guess a little bit, but our fan base is dwindling.
Okay. You started to talk about some of the stories of the players that are coming in. I want to start with your first signing. You signed a player named Jack Randall, who has experience in the league. How beneficial do you think that will be for you guys to have someone that's already played in the EHLP?
Well, I think it'll be very beneficial. It's also, it's helped me in some ways. When we had our camps and stuff like that, I was able to talk to Jack and get a feel for him of what he thought our skill level was compared to other teams in the league. So certainly his leadership that way has been good. And again, he's one of those kids that he's the same age as my son. My son and him are close friends, and I've coached Jack Randall since he was probably 8 years old. So I'm good friends with obviously with him and his family, and to have him be a part of it, it was important to me, and I thought that he would be a great player. He's very enthusiastic about hockey. He loves the game of hockey, and he represents every team he plays for very well. And to make him the first signing for us, I thought would be figuratively a nice gesture.
And you bring up a story of a player who hadn't played in a few years, but now because there's a team in the area, he's getting back into the game. Is that a call that you made to that player, or did that player reach out to you guys?
Well, I again, he was another player that I'd coached through youth hockey, and I knew his parents, his grandfather, and we talked and things like that, and they were saying, he's gotten away from hockey and he's doing other things, and it'd sure be nice to see him play again. And I had a conversation with him, and I think he got the excitement back, to play again. His equipment was worn out and a little old. He hasn't had it for a few years, but I think he's probably. I've coached kids over the years, going back to my oldest kids are in their late 30s, and I don't know if I've ever met a better athlete than this boy. So
okay.
I think the adjustment to getting back to playing shouldn't be that hard for him, but it's going to be a fun experience. And again, I think it's one of those things where aside from hockey, it can be a very positive thing in his life, and something he can build on.
And in that community that we've talked about a little bit here so far, you guys have this facility that I've never been to, but I hear it's great. I know it may not be full at all 4,700 seats when you guys play, but can you talk a little bit about the rink and what it has to offer you and your program? Well,
the community's been very supportive of us. We got a grant from the city for $50,000, and when I say the city, not the city itself, but a group of business people who help with I guess financially help different companies and new businesses start up, and they gave us a $50,000 bill or a check or whatever to build our own locker room. So we're building our own locker room there. We'll have our own locker room. With the pro team, they have like a full-size gym, a full-scale gym that we'll have access to. We plan on starting a program, and obviously we're in the hunt right now for a new coach for our pro team, and this will have to be cleared through him. But I know that they've been very positive toward it. So, some sort of mentorship program where the players on our team have like a big brother playing on the pro team and somebody you can exchange phone numbers with, talk to. And, the pro players, they're going to be between 22, 32 years old usually. And it wasn't that long ago that they were going through this whole junior experience themselves. And, we can match the players up. And like I said, they can have a big brother, somebody to look up to on the big team. And as far as the pro team goes, it's always kind of nice to be somebody's hero too, and somebody that you can help along the way. So we think that can be a program that helps both teams and helps our players and gives the pro team some leadership qualities. And when those guys go out and talk to schools, they can take our guys with them and drag them along and just show them how they do it and how they carry themselves in public and things like that. And that'll be a big part of our program. But yeah, our facility, we got a beautiful facility. They put a new clock up a couple of years ago that we'll have for our games. With the screen, the video board, and everything like that on it. And so yeah, it's going to be a very nice facility.
I'm glad you brought that up, because I was going to ask how you guys were going to kind of tie things together between the EHLP team and the ECHL team. You mentioned how they may go do some mentorship with them. Is it also going to be a requirement for your guys when home and the ECHL team is home to go watch them play?
Well, I don't know if it's going to be a requirement, but it'll certainly be something I think they're going to want to do. When we have a game, if we have a game on a Saturday and the pro team's playing that night, our players will just probably stay at the rink and stay for that game. But it won't be a requirement, but it'll be something that we do occasionally. I guess probably now that you mention it as a coach, it'd be nice to have them all there once in a while. And I mean, even on a day, if we're going to be at the rink and we don't have ice that particular day on a weekend, come watch them practice for a day, and we can sit and watch them practice for a half an hour and then do our off ice workouts and things like that, and just get a feel for the for what it's like at that next level. We I was on the ice a couple times with the Big Thunder last year, and the East Coast Hockey League 10 or 15 years ago was a little bit more of a beer league, and I was out there this year, and I was absolutely amazed at the speed and how fast they were in their execution. It's these guys are good players, and I think it's good for our guys not only to see how fast they are and how well they execute and things like that. They do they do the same drills that we do. They just do them with so much faster and so much better execution. And that's one of the things I've always tried to teach kids. It's not like when you learn something, it's not like you're going from algebra to trigonometry. It's the same game. It's just done faster and it's done crisper. And it's good for them to see that. And certainly the level of fitness and the level of commitment these guys have. That I think you always think as a player, you're working hard and doing things and until you see somebody else do it at a higher level. And I know in training camps I worked with the Detroit Red Wings for 30 years, and we'd have our draft picks come to training camp, and we'd have our practices, and our practices would be high tempo practices. And the junior kids, they would be after practice, they'd be showered up and shuffling out of the locker room, exhausted. And they look in the weight room, and there's guys like Chris Chelios on the exercise bike and doing things like that. And that's how you learn. And then, it's not too long before those guys are doing the exact same thing. So it's always good to, you always have the coach saying, do this, do that, and pushing you. But when you see peers and guys, other players do it, it leaves a different taste.
Oh, for sure. And let's get back to the visions for your program here to wrap things up. You put out a quote or a message when the team first got announced back in January. I'm not going to read the whole quote here, but there was a specific sentence that kind of stuck out to me. And you said, "We are a hockey program, but not a hockey only program." Can you talk more about what you meant by that?
Well, like I said, I have kids that I've coached when when they were like they're in their 30s now, and I always tell people, what my win-loss program was when I was coaching youth hockey, and they'd say, "No, what was it?" And I say, "I don't have a clue." But it's about the development of the kids, and to see these kids that you've coached go on to do bigger and better things in their life, like that's, I think as a coach, and especially as a coach of young men, they're at a critical age in their life where they've got a lot of things on their plate, a lot of decisions to make, and if you can have a bearing on that and help them on that road, I mean, they get tired of hearing mom and dad tell them what to do and how to do things, and you know what? When you see players that you've coached go on to do well, or whether obviously in school and then in their career and in their job, there's you take a lot of pride in that, and it's good to see them so that I think that's what I meant by that. I was very fortunate, right? When I coached in the OHL, we had with the Sudbury Wolves, our 1975 birth year players. We had 10 players off one team go in the NHL draft in one season, which,
Wow.
10 players off one team in one NHL draft. It was the most of any team in the world. And, when I still have a get together with these guys once in a while now, they invite me back. So I guess I've aged and got a little bit softer that they welcome me back to their mix. But not all of them went on to play in the NHL. Some of them went on to, play hockey in Europe and open up businesses and do businesses and things like that. And you know what? It's very satisfying as a coach to see the people that you've worked with be successful. And I mean, some of them, our tough guy went on to be a doctor, so you don't see what's coming down the road for their futures and everything, but you hope that maybe some of the things that you did helped a little bit. And again, that's what it's certainly it is more than a hockey program.
That's awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming on the podcast here for the first time. And I know I speak for the entire league when I say we're excited to have you guys in the league. So I hope you get a chance to enjoy a little bit of the off season while getting ready for your first year in the EHLP.
It's very busy, but yeah, we're certainly enjoying it up here. Neil, thank you very much.
Thank you. I'm joined now by Sam Tafel, the head coach and assistant GM of the Union Junior Thunder. How's it going, Sam?
Hey, Neil, pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well, and I appreciate you coming on the podcast for the first time. Another welcome to the EHLP, if you will. This is obviously an episode talking with all three of our new EHLP teams. I know I was involved in the process, but the fans listening at home weren't. Can you kind of take us back through your initial emails to me and getting into the EHLP?
Yeah, as our organization started looking into a junior team, we started doing our research of leagues in the area, and the EHL really stood out to us. Not only we see it all the time how many commitments and advancement the league has, but I think more importantly, we saw the stability of the league. We saw the leadership at the head of it, whether it's, the front office or the teams themselves. And it really started with, filling out one of those contact forms on the website and reaching out to you and expressing our interest. So started simple and got a lot more complicated from there, but in a good way. Whether it was, but I think one thing that was really beneficial to us, and I think I've seen it, you said one of the many welcomes, I think one of the first welcomes we got was some assistance from already established EHL programs, helping us through that process and identifying what we needed to provide. And I think that really helped streamline the process and, ended up pretty well, I think, since we're here right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I knew I was a part of that process, but I wanted to hear you say it for the group that's listening at home. Different from the first Thunder interview on this podcast, though, Glenn Merkosky didn't really expect to be the head coach. It just ended up being that he became the head coach. He's obviously excited. Your program's vision, you were always going to be the head coach. Can you talk about your experience with the Union Thunder and how the years leading up to this point have you guys ready to now dip your toe into junior hockey?
Yeah, absolutely. I started with a couple other organizations and also worked in scouting and consulting at the junior level. And I came over to Thunder about 5 years ago. And what I really liked about the program here was it was about development. It was about advancing guys and moving guys up. And we really found ourselves in a position where we, at our U18 levels and even after our U18s, we saw our guys moving on to a higher level that we couldn't provide. And we never wanted to hold them back because we wanted what's best for the players, because it's about development. And if we don't have the level to develop you, then we got to do our job and get you to the next level. And as we started seeing the growth of our program to up to a 500 youth player program, we wanted to have that avenue for players where if they didn't want to leave, they didn't have to. We wanted to give them a place where rather than outgrowing us, they can grow into it. And with that in mind, we started discussing different possibilities of how we could provide that level with me as the head coach of the program. And we found that having a junior team in the EHLP to start would be the best way to do that. So I've been in lockstep with our management team the entire time, whether it's, me using them as a resource from the business aspect of things or them using me as a resource from the hockey operations end of it. It's been a team effort from the beginning, but also knowing whose roles was who right from the start.
And I'm glad that you brought up the management team, because when I talk about all the different programs in our league, I like to emphasize, so every program is different, but there's also many aspects that are similar too. And what I've now come to find myself saying a lot is that two teams that are kind of similar in a way are the Union Thunder and the Worcester Railers, because they're each led by these, we're going to call them powerful families, because you have the Odessas in Worcester and you have the Andersons at the helm down with you guys in Union. How valuable has your time with the Anderson family been, and just the experience that they have? How beneficial will that be for your program?
I don't know if words could even describe it. Experience is key, but I think also having great decision makers and people who make those decisions for the right reasons is just as important. And I think the Andersons have done that ever since they opened up their rink in 2001. And even to their credit, they used to have a junior team. I mean, I'm probably dating myself with this, but you remember the old Empire League and the CHA League back in the mid 2000s. They were the first home for the New Jersey Wildcats. And Matt Anderson, who's one of our owners now, actually played for them when they first were out of that rink. So I think with having the Andersons there and showing that not only can they run a great rink as a business, but they can also run a great youth program that's grown from 10 years ago to just one or two local travel teams to a 500 plus youth program with now a junior affiliate, I think speaks for itself. But they've been, but their experience, not only as management of a rink and a youth organization, but even some experience working with Wildcats in the mid 2000s, has really put us in a place where we can establish ourselves to have just a good program that has a good culture and a good community that gets players better in a good environment.
100%. And in a good rink too. I haven't been to the facility yet. Obviously I plan to this season, but from what I hear, it's a great spot to be. I mean, you're right in the heart of New Jersey, and I hear there's a smaller kind of skills sheet there. Can you talk more about that?
Yeah, so we have a main sheet, and then in the back, in the 2000s, they almost had basically a 50 to 60-yard football field in the back. And about 6 years ago, we cut that training facility in half. So now we got about a 30-yard turf field with about 3 racks, a sled, and a couple bench presses. And the other half of it is now a mini rink. So what it's really good for is small areas. I think what we try to do is we want to have players make decisions. Like, yeah, it's great working on skills and going around a cone, but what decision are you making when you're put in a certain space that you don't want to be in? Because when you're playing in a game, the team you're playing against wants to put you in a position you don't want to be in. And putting our guys in small areas like that in the back there gives them a great opportunity to make different decisions, see what works, and also just important, see what doesn't work and see what you need to work on. And, I think it's also a great benefit to our goalies with having that additional ice where, hey, maybe the main rink where we don't have an opportunity to get us out there, but we do have a sheet in the back where we can get 3 or 4 goalies out there with shooters and make sure that they're honing their skills as well.
Oh, for sure. And I mentioned how you guys are in the heart of New Jersey, and then we get to the scheduling meeting and you guys decide to book the 87s for your first game. Planned or not planned?
Yeah, that question might have to go to upper management. But I think I did mention before how the EHL was very welcoming. I have to give credit to the New Jersey 87s and Kiernan being one of those guys. So I think our communications with them, it made a lot of sense to schedule them as our first game. Maybe it's going to be a little bit of battle between North Jersey and South Jersey. I don't believe in Central Jersey. I'm one of those guys. So, I consider 87s down south. Once you go over that big bridge, I don't know if you've ever driven down there, but that's South Jersey. So we got a little bit of North versus South Jersey to open things up, which we're really excited about.
One of the guys with the 87s, you mentioned Kieran, obviously Hooley, the coaches there, being very welcoming, but another one who's on the podcast with me is Anthony Depaulo. And I bring him up because oftentimes on the podcast, you'll hear Anthony joke about the schedule maker, which sometimes, majority of the time are yourselves, but also can be me. Then I see you guys post your showcase schedule, which does come back to me. 4 of your first 5 showcase games are against teams that have been to the last 2 Frozen finals. Do you guys, I know I did it, but do you kind of embrace the challenge?
Absolutely. I think with anything we do, we don't run from challenge, we run to it. So if we want to be an EHL Premier team, well, guess what? You got to play the best EHL Premier team. So, I'd rather have them right from the get-go. I think not only is it going to be a great challenge we're going to run to and a great teams to play, but I think that's also going to be a great learning experience for our players. And whether they're first-year junior players or whether they're junior players from other leagues, we're in the P now. And this is the level you have to play at. And these are the teams that, we're going to be competing with from a standings aspect all year. And these are the teams we're hope to be competing with in Providence in March.
Yep. And it's a great answer to it. And then maybe to wrap up the scheduling, I mentioned the opener. I mentioned the showcase games. Then let's talk about the home opener against another team that's going to be on this podcast, in the Pennsylvania Huntsmen. Was that one planned? Because it's 2 new teams early on in the year.
I don't know if it was specifically planned, but I do know that we wanted to find a way where we could have a home game relatively early in our schedule, where we were playing a team that we know we're going to see a lot. I think that was really important to us. One thing that's great about this sport, or any sport, is rivalry and playing teams more than once, getting to know them, knowing what they like, knowing what they don't like, knowing that they know you and you need to adjust. And we wanted to have our first game against a team like that. So our first home opener, so that later in the season, as our community continues to grow around this team and support it, not only is that first game going to be thrilling, but I think once we play them through the 3rd or 4th, 5th time, that's going to be even more so and lead to some other great home stands, whether it's a home and home. We're going down there for a 2-game set. So I'm really excited for some good competitive hockey. I think that's all going to start with a really nice home opener for us.
I'll make sure to ask Zach Overholtzer this question also, but did the rivalry become born between your 2 teams? You haven't faced each other yet, but did it become born when it felt like every other day about a month ago you were competing with, we signed this guy, we signed this guy? It felt like you guys were going back and forth. Did you even notice it, or was that just me?
I noticed it. I'd be lying to you if I said I didn't notice it. I think for us, and I think for the Huntsmen too, is it's all gas, no brakes. We want to be able to look ourselves in the mirror and say that we're doing everything we can to run a great program that's going to have a great experience for our players. And, when you're sitting there a month ago, there's only so much you can do on the ice. But that doesn't mean you can't create a great atmosphere or put in effort to, have a good program and have things that people want to see. So I think it really started that way. And I'm more, as much as I think that was cool, I'm not the social media guy,
Okay.
I'm looking forward to doing it on the ice, but I like all the buildup that we're doing, over the digital airwaves.
And for on the ice, I don't want to make you give me a specific number for wins or losses, but in your first year, do you set the bar somewhere? Like what at the end, at this time next year, what's going to look back and make you think that was a successful first season?
For us, if we can look at each of us and say that we did everything we could to compete, come in, be prepared, and then that's going to be success. I think we want to be a team that's known as our tough competitors. Play every puck, stop at every net, lift every stick, and whether it's a team in our state coming in or whether it's a team from North being like, oh man, I gotta go to Jersey, and play the Thunder. We want to be able to look at ourselves and say we got better at the end of the year, and that it was a continuous process. Is there a number I want to put on it? Sure, but I think it's also making sure we stick to the right concepts, and that's developing players. And that's what the EHL Premier and the EHL is about. But, don't get me wrong, we want to be one of those teams that in Providence at the end of the year. But I also know it's just as important to make sure you have players moving up the ladder, whether it's up to the EHL, whether it's from, a role player, the EHLP, to their next year to be in a top contributor. And if we're able to do that, that's going to be a successful season.
Perfect. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast here for the first time. Won't be the last time for sure. And I know I speak for the entire league when I say we're excited to have you guys in the EHLP.
All right. Yeah. Thanks so much. Got another New Jersey team in. So, with all the damage New Jersey's been doing in hockey recently, it's good to get some more teams out here.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Appreciate it.
I'm joined now by Zach Overholtzer, the general manager of the Pennsylvania Huntsmen. How's it going, Zach?
Good, man. Appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you coming on. The third and final interview for this EHLP special episode. And what I've kind of done with each of the first two interviews so far is talk about the path to getting into the league, even though you and I both know what that path was because it was you and I talking, but the audience at home doesn't. Can you kind of take the audience at home listening through the path of why you were interested in the EHL and how that conversation started?
Yeah, for sure. It was pretty unique, and the timing kind of seemed just to work out well for us. We're in a really good place with our rink and with our local youth organization and some of our spring and summer skills programs that we have. So we had a good database of players that were just looking for another opportunity to advance, especially after they graduated high school or they were looking to know what their next 2 or 3 years was like, leaving, graduating high school, and then going to either college directly or the junior route. And I had looked at a bunch of different leagues for our program to join. And frankly, you and I just hit it off, and we were on the same page with what your league had as the plan and a motto and kind of the direction you were going. It really kind of welded well with what we were trying to accomplish out of Exton.
And the name, Pennsylvania Huntsmen, we've never had a name kind of like this before. Where did it come from?
Well, it's a pretty simple one. I'd like to have a more in detail explanation for you, but Exton's not somewhere that people are really familiar with. We always tend to use Philadelphia as our marker. Mm-hmm. But with everybody having Philadelphia this and Philadelphia that, I figured we would just leapfrog them and claim the whole state of Pennsylvania for our little junior venture.
Okay.
And we're trying to come up with a new brand, something that wasn't one of our local youth program names. And a fun fact that I've known for a long time, or at least it might be a fact that somebody will want to check me out here on this. Pennsylvania becomes something like the 3rd or 4th largest army in the world, or maybe America, on opening hunting day, or opening season, right after Thanksgiving.
Okay.
So I wanted to describe the state. I wanted a nice, mean logo and something new. And it seems like it's catching on with a little inspiration from our friends the Dallas Stars and their color scheme. And we're off and running, and that's how it started.
I like it. It's a good answer. And I'm glad that you brought up the Philadelphia thing, because what's funny is it feels like we replaced what we used to have in multiple flyers. Now we only have one flyer now we have multiple Thunders. You're coming in with 2 Thunders. So I guess this is your last chance. If you wanted to change your name to Pennsylvania Thunder, I would take it now, but we're good with the Huntsman, right?
Yeah, we'll probably pass on that one and let them duke it out. And for the naming rights, I'm not trying to spend any more money here in a little naming battle, but good luck to those guys.
So let's jump into the recruiting and scheduling part of this, because as I talked about with each of the guys before you, being that it's your first year coming in, I'm sure many of the lessons that you're going to learn are going to be stuff that takes place throughout the year. First, with scheduling, the first thing I noticed with what you set up is your first game for your program is not until the first showcase of the season. Was that by design?
Yeah, it has to do with ice availability too, right? We might do some exhibition stuff inter squad or with other EHL programs. We're in talks with them just to kind of get our guys familiar with the level of play and maybe challenge them with some E teams, not just some P teams. But one of the big things we wanted to focus on was doing stuff right, taking our time, not just jumping in to deep water. So we're going to spend that first 3-4 weeks of the season. I was actually just talking with Coach Blaze and the rest of the staff a couple hours ago, and really install everything, take our time, and make sure that we're all on the same page so that we're set up for success going into September with that showcase.
Makes sense. And it gives you plenty of time to really put together a full training camp. And now in terms of the recruiting, something I found very interesting in getting to know you since we first had our first conversation, it felt like every single time I was texting you or calling you, you were at a game. You were watching a game. Why? What were you trying to look for?
Well, that goes all the way back to when you and me first had our conversations. And that conversation was, we want to make sure there's a good quality product for the league, for the players, for the program, and we have a really good first year. So I wanted to, as the GM of this new franchise, set it up for success and digest as much as I could, really understand what the league's about, train my eye specifically to the level of play that I need to put on the ice so that everyone has a good product. So yeah, you would find me at different showcases. I was up at the Newington showcase. I spent a whole lot of time at Iceworks watching games coming in, and the little Flyers have been great to me. All the guys, Anthony there, and Jimmy Watson, really kind of let me come in and see how they operate and build a relationship with them so that everybody has a good kind of connection and we work well together. The league in general has been so welcoming, and all the guys and the combine that we went to, and it's been really great to work with everybody.
I'm glad that you brought up the Newington showcase because I'm going to go off the rails for a little bit. Don't usually do this with an interview, but I don't know if I've shared this picture with you, but I think we met for the first time at the Newington showcase. And I'm not sure if you know this, but you got caught right in the middle of a picture.
Uh-oh.
So this is the game-winning goal from an EHL game. Have I showed you this picture?
I have not seen it. And man, that's something, buddy.
Maybe this is some content to put on your Instagram at some point when you guys first get started this year.
I might need to. And if you want to, if Hartnett's out there and he wants me to sign that photo for him while he's celebrating the goal, that's perfectly fine. I'll send a few copies he can give out to any of his friends and family too.
Love it. So let's get back on track then. You mentioned Blaze earlier. I know I got to meet Lou at the combine that you just referenced as well. You're the GM. I introduced you as that, but you have a full staff. How valuable is that for you to have, 5 guys like this? And why was that so important for you to build a full staff like this?
I think it all comes down to the culture and completely avoiding an ego. I'm one that really wants to bring good people around me and bring them all up with me. I've been fortunate enough to know the assistant coaches, Lou and Ben, for a very long time. And I trust a lot of I just trust them in general. They have a wealth of knowledge and come from different levels. And then I had come across Blaze as I interviewed close to 30, 35 different guys in various forms. And I thought that he was the right connection with his experience where he had played in the EHL. He had then gone and played at Franklin Pierce, which was D2 at that time, I think. It may be D3 now, or D2 still.
Yep.
So I wanted to make sure that all these different guys on the staff were a different type of resource to the players, because we're building a roster of one team, but each player needs to be treated individually, and everyone's going to have their strengths and weaknesses or their different needs. And all of the guys on the staff kind of serve a different purpose or have a different tool in their tool bag. And we're really, really fortunate there.
And as this summer has progressed, I have to ask this question because I promised Sam Tafel from Union I would. It's awesome for me to see the announcements come in on players that could sign, because when I sit here at my desk, like I sometimes it feels like, what am I actually working on? Because there's no hockey around me, right? I'm just sitting in my house and what's taking place. But then you see the player signings come in and you're like, all right, that's what's taking place. The teams are forming and this and that. It felt like for a 2-week stretch, it was Union Thunder versus PA Huntsmen, one after another, competing with signings. Did it feel that way to you, or did you guys not even notice it as an organization?
Damn right it did, buddy. we're both out there competing, and it was kind of funny because they posted, we posted, and I thought it was just because of the time of the year, right? We're both heavily involved in the youth world, so we're both used to working in that quick time frame of talk to people, commit to people, sign people, and then you're done. Yep. And he would post and I would post, and then it seems we both caught on, and it was one for them, one for us, back and forth like rapid fire, and it made it a lot of fun. And while we were kind of sitting there at the combine when all the coaches got together, which was great to get to meet people in person, we spoke about that a little bit. A little bit of friendly competition is good, you know?
Yeah. And their home opener is actually what would be your 5th game, which is on October 1st. So a date that we all have circled probably then. The first bragging rights, if we will. But you bring up the combine, which is where I got to see you again and meet Lou. How valuable was it being a new team just to come in, of course, to see all the different talent that wants to be a part of the league, but also just meet all of the coaches in one place? How valuable was that to you?
It was probably one of the most valuable things. You know, obviously, as a P team coming in, and then you have a bunch of established organizations that have only E or ENP, everyone's comfortable and they know the ropes, they know what to do. They kind of are set in their ways, and you wonder how you're going to be received as the new kid on the block. And all the GMs that were there, all of the head coaches, everybody just had a great culture of respect, and we're so open. I think that coming into the league, having a combine, and this was the first year for the league, from what I understand.
Yep.
Man, it was ultra valuable. It really, really set the tone.
It's a great step for us. And one aspect that you have that I guess you can say is not new, you're bringing in a broadcaster and a PA guy who I know very well because they were right down the street from where you guys are with the Junior Flyers for all those years. Can you just talk about, I mean, they're going to want this shout out. I have to make sure I give it to them. Can you just talk about how excited you are to have Joe Sindoni and Matt Berman on board? Because like I said, they know the league very well from their time with the Junior Flyers.
I'll tell you, I didn't realize what I had until I started talking to some of the guys around the league. So I just had some guys reach out to me and say, hey, I can help and I'm interested. And we went through early on, and I had conversations with him. I didn't think too much of it. I just felt like I checked the box. I accomplished something that we needed to get done early on so we can focus on stuff in season. And then I learned how valuable they were, to the point that I created history, and you knew I was going to bring this up.
Yeah, I've
created history in the EHL and probably the hockey world, because I have the first ever tender for a scorekeeper and play-by-play guy. So I want to congratulate them on signing a tender.
Yes,
and if anybody else wants to follow in suit, please give me credit for that in the future.
Yes. You have the broadcaster, you have the play-by-play, or the play-by-play guy, same guy, the PA guy, you have the coaches, you have the players coming in. I know we've checked in numerous times about where you guys are at. We're still in early June though. How anxious are you to get this thing started?
I'm ready to go. I have a staff that keeps me in check, right? Yeah. So as we talked about earlier, we have Ben, Louis, Blaze, everybody. Everybody brings a different perspective and different background that they come from. So every time somebody says, let's sign some more guys, we need to get ready to go, somebody else is saying, no, let's just wait, because we have plenty of room on the roster and plenty of time to build a quality squad and a good experience here.
Yeah. Well, we're beyond excited for you guys to come in. I know it was kind of in order, Adirondack, then Union, than you guys, and you're not taking the Thunder name. We established that on this podcast. So we can't wait for that first matchup, though, between you and the Union Thunder after all the signings. So appreciate you coming on the podcast for the first time. Good luck with the rest of the recruiting, and enjoy what we can of the rest of the offseason as well.
Thanks. I appreciate you having us on, and look to be back sometime soon.
Thanks for listening to The E-Show. Learn more at easternhockeyleague.org and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Also, be sure to subscribe and get notified when next week's podcast is released.